Today, we're going to give you our Dynasty running back rankings. This is based off PPR scoring, which is right in the S tier. First player, we're going to have Bijan Robinson of the Atlanta Falcons. Bijan's one of the best running back prospects we've ever seen in NFL football. Had a pretty decent rookie year, but just was underutilized by Arthur Smith. Good news for him, Arthur Smith is out of there. So the days of splitting touches with Tyler Algier is hopefully over for Bijan Robinson, and he can finally take the reins as the true bell cow running back. Bijan's got great hands, so he's got great receiving work. He's great at he's great. He's one of the best running backs in the league already, and we're expecting just an absolute monster season from him, and he's still very young, so plenty
Yeah.
of time.
Another guy we got in this list, Brees Hall. Major quarterback upgrade with Aaron Rodgers coming in there. Brees Hall, he's going to create a lot of touches out of the backfield, catching the ball from Aaron Rodgers. And he's also got an improved O-line, and he should just have more opportunities in general to score touchdowns because that offense is going to be so much better. So he was already a great running back last year, fantasy-wise, and he's going to be even better. And he
Mhm.
has the real-life talent to pair with it, and he's pretty young too. He's going to be so good. He's right behind Bijan, but still, he's going to be incredible.
They're 1A, 1B.
Yeah.
It's almost the same player. Our next player is going to be Jameer Gibbs. Gibbs had another just fantastic rookie season, and that offense has not changed at all. He does have some capped upside with Dave Montgomery being there, of course, like they're probably going to split touches, but Jameer Gibbs is one of the most efficient players in the league last year. I don't really expect that to be any different this year. He's great receiving back, and he also just is just so efficient with the ball. And the Lions have one of the best O lines in the league, which just it makes for an absolute monster when it comes to fantasy points. Jameer Gibbs might have some weeks where he has a little bit of a down week because he only touches the ball like I don't know 14 times a week compared to like your Bijan and Brees who are going to get close to that 20 touches a game. But he's also going to have some absolute monster week where he scores like 3 touchdowns on like 3 30-yard runs. So
Yeah. Amon-Ra St. Brown challenged him to catching 1,000 yards out of the backfield and then rushing for 1,000 yards. I don't think that's going to happen.
it could.
That'd be
It
crazy
would
if
be
it did.
crazy.
But yeah, he's still going to be very good this
Yeah,
season.
absolutely.
So starting off the next year, we've got Christian McCaffrey. He's on the older side for running back, but he could potentially be the number one overall player in fantasy football this season. You can't deny that kind of upside. He's like the Tyreek Hill of the running back position in Dynasty. Older, but he's still going to produce. If you're a contending team, you want him on your roster. If you're rebuilding, you probably want to ship him off to someone else. But as long as he's healthy in that 49ers offense, he's going to be incredible.
Yeah, I mean CMC is just 1 year at a time, even one game at a time. But like when you have him and he's healthy, he's probably the best player in all fantasy, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we have to have him here, despite being so old. Our next player in this tier is going to be Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor is kind of like the love child of like the younger running backs, the older running backs, the upside, the downside. Like he's kind of just right bang in the middle. He doesn't have the upside to be like 22 points per game like some of the other guys have, but he does have upside of like 18 to 20 points a game. He's in a pretty good offense with Anthony Richardson. I think they're going to lean on Taylor quite a bit. He's going to get tons of rushing yards, hopefully some touchdowns. I could see maybe Anthony Richardson taking some of those rushing touchdowns. Think like Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia, same type of vibe. He's going to be in Indy for the foreseeable future, and we think with Shane Steichen there, just going to be a solid player for the years to come.
So starting off next year, we've got Saquon Barkley makes a move over to Philadelphia this offseason. So already a much better offense with the Eagles. He's running behind the best offensive line of his career. He should be really exciting in this Eagles offense. We think he's going to be able to score a lot of touchdowns. Maybe not an incredible amount because Jalen Hurts, he is going to take some running the QB sneaks and that kind of stuff. But he's going to be able to produce out of the
Mm-hmm.
backfield as long as he stays healthy, which has been an issue for him. We think he's going to be really solid for the next few years. He signed a 3 year deal, so the Eagles think that he'll be healthy and usable for the next 3 seasons. So we treat the running back position in 1 to 2 year windows when you're talking about dynasty football. So for the next 1 to 2 years, Saquon's going to be really nice to have on a
Yep.
contending team.
Someone who could easily challenge to be the running back one overall in the next couple of years. Next up, we have Devontae Chain. Had a very solid rookie year. He obviously had some injuries, and he's dealing with Raheem Mostert being in that backfield along with him. But he's just one of the most efficient, if not the most efficient player in all of football. Like he averaged like 8 some yards a touch. He just has that game-breaking ability where he can just pull off a 50-yard play anytime he touches the football, and not many players in the NFL have that ability. He's still very young. Obviously, he was just coming off a rookie season, so we have him here. Very solid player. We're a little lower on him, I think, than the average channel, but we still don't mind him.
Yeah. We did move him up over the next guy on our list, Travis Etienne. The reason why we did that is we just think that A Chain provides more upside in general than a guy like Travis Etienne.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty solid. He had not the best year in that Jacksonville offense. I'm not sure if it's due to coaching or offensive line. Hasn't been the talent, the player that we thought he could have been when he was drafted out of Clemson, whether it's due to injuries, other things. But he's still a very, very solid player. He catches the ball out of the backfields, does all that type of things. Maybe if the Jacksonville offense is better this season, which we think it should be, you'll see increased production from ETN as well. But he's still just a solid running.
Just a solid, probably gonna be a low end mid running back one this year.
Really, like when we're building a team, we've said it a million times. Like after the top five or so guys, maybe Saquon included,
Mm-hmm.
we don't really want them on our roster. We'd rather just sell it off
No.
for value while they still have that value.
Yep. Our next player is someone actually I would not mind having on my team, and that's Jonathan Brooks.
Yeah.
Brooks is entering the Panthers offense, which we think is going to take a big step from where they were last year. And they were terrible last year, so hopefully they take a step. It's coming off a torn ACL, so might have a very slow start to the season, but I wouldn't be surprised if by the second half of the season, he's putting up maybe RB1 numbers. I could see that happening. He's a very talented player. We like him a lot. And even if he does like not have the best year, the good thing about Jonathan Brooks, and one of the reasons why I'm okay with having him on my teams, is that he's going to have built-in excuses for the fact that he's coming off a torn ACL. So no matter what happens this year, next year people are going to be hype on him. Whether he's good this year, he's going to have hype, or if he's bad this year, people are like, "Oh, he's coming off a torn ACL. He was still a second-round pick. Give me Jonathan Brooks." So,
Yeah. He took over for Bijan in that Texas offense after Bijan went to the draft, and there was really no drop off in production. So I think that speaks to how talented Jonathan Brooks is. Like you were saying,
mm-hmm,
just got to get through the injury stuff that he'll have the first NFL season. But after that, we're really excited. I mean, he's going
mm-hmm.
to be a very good player. So last guy in this tier, we've got Kyron Williams. Had a really solid season last year, was RB7. But they bring in Blake Corum in the offseason, so I think you're going to see a drop off in Kyron's production. Is also a guy that hasn't been able to stay the most healthy over his first couple of seasons in the NFL. He's a pretty small running back, so I think they want to lean on Blake Corum more, who's bigger than him.
I think the big thing with Kyron and Corum is I think Corum could take goal line,
Yeah,
and if Corum takes goal line, that just kind of destroys Kyron's value.
yeah, you see the touchdowns go down. He had a lot of touchdowns last season.
Mm-hmm.
I think that definitely goes down, and his points per game and all that go
Yep.
down.
So starting off our next year, we're gonna have Trey Benson. We're pretty high on him. We think he's a pretty decent player, and we do like the Cardinals' offense quite a bit. The problem is James Conner's there, right? So this year, Trey Benson's like maybe a mid or back end RB2 at like a best. Like I don't, and maybe James Conner gets hurt and he has some upside there, but if James Conner stays healthy, it's gonna be really hard for Trey Benson to put up any meaningful numbers in his first year. So he's more of like a year two player. And we're not that high on running backs just in general. We don't want to keep them on our teams just for future years. But Trey Benson, we think, is a decent player, and we think in the future could have some value.
Yeah, I agree with you. Trey Benson's very decent, but James Conner's decent too. He's not going
Mm-hmm.
anywhere at the
No.
moment. So next guy on this list, we've got Josh Jacobs, moves over to the Packers offense this offseason. Much better offense than what he dealt with in Vegas. Decent offensive line there, obviously great coaching and a great quarterback. So I think you're going to see him get involved a lot in the pass game and just get an opportunity to score a lot of touchdowns. He's the bell cow, at least for this season. They bring in Marshawn Lloyd. I think that's a reason why we're not higher on Josh Jacobs, just because third round draft capital and Marshawn Lloyd, maybe they move on from Jacobs. There's outs in that contract that he signed. But at least for this season, he's going to be very solid. You
Mm-hmm.
just got to remember 1 to 2 year windows when you're talking about running backs. So at least for this season and the next season, while he's still relatively
He's
youngish,
actually like stupidly young.
26 years old, and he's been in the league forever.
Yeah.
So we're not too worried about Josh Jacobs. We like him as a contending team. Go buy him.
Mm-hmm. Next person is gonna be James Cook. James Cook's someone who we've been like up and down on in terms of his value. We just think he's a pretty solid player. He's hyper efficient as like once again kind of like a Jameer Gibbs type of player. And the Bills are going to be a good offense. They're going to find a way to be a good offense with Josh Allen, and they have to find someone to catch the ball, someone to rush the ball, right? So James Cook, he had he was like top four in rushing last year, I think. That was like so quietly. I think he could maybe do that again, and just because the Bills are not going to like who are they going to throw the ball to?
Keon Coleman.
Yeah, they have nobody to throw the ball to.
They'll throw to Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah, so but they're gonna have to give someone the ball. They're gonna get yards somehow. I think James Cook's gonna be a big part of that plan. He does have like some minor size concerns. Like I am worried about him being like a bell cow type back because of how small he is, but we'll see. I think he's gonna be a decent running back this year.
Yeah, like you said, Josh Allen's always going to be scoring a ton of touchdowns on the ground. And then they bring in Ray Davis, who's a bigger running back in the draft. So the touchdown upside really isn't there, which, again, is why he's
It
low.
wasn't there last year either, to be fair.
Yeah, I don't think it'll ever be there for him.
No.
Last guy rounding out this list, Rashad White. Rashad White, he's just not a good real life player. And again, that's why he's not higher on this list. He does produce in fantasy. He was the RB4 last season. But they draft Bucky Irving. I don't know if he takes away from Rashad White this season, but I think eventually they bring in someone that actually can run the football in a consistent way. Rashad White is just so inefficient with his touches, but it's only a matter of time until he gets replaced. He's just too inefficient for this to continue on.
Yep.
Rashad White.
So starting off our last year, we're gonna have Isaiah Pacheco. Pacheco's someone that we are so much lower on compared to the community, whether it's redraft rankings, dynasty rankings. We just are not that in on Pacheco. He's an okay NFL player, nothing special. And I just don't buy into the fact that if people think he's gonna be the running back there for the next like 2 years, I could see him being replaced like mid this year. I really could. I don't think he's anything special. I don't think he's going to be better than other running backs on that same roster. And because of that, I think his dynasty value takes a bit of a hit. He also doesn't really catch the ball, which we love players that catch the ball. We base this on PPR rankings, so he takes a hit because of that. He's very touchdown dependent. Obviously, the Chiefs are a fantastic offense to be in. I'm just not sure about the long term, even like 1 year from now in terms of his value.
Yeah, I don't know if there's necessarily anyone that would replace him this season. But like you said, like they're moving more to the pass game with Rasheed Rice, Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy this offseason. They bring him in. Like I think people just get too much tunnel vision on Pacheco just because he's there in the here and now. But again, this is dynasty. We got to look into the future, and I don't think it's really that hard to replace a seventh round running back who provides you okay production. Like I think he just gets his hype because he runs people over and then gets up and jumps around or whatever. Like he in reality he's just a really average player. And we
Mm-hmm.
just like if you can get something nice for him, we move him on and re-roll that in a
If
draft
you
pick
can
and
first from
receiver.
Pacheco, just send him right now.
Like he's fine. He's just fine.
Yeah.
Another guy who's just fine. We're not really excited is Kenneth Walker. Another guy that people like more than we do. We just don't really value the RP position. He's fine. He's sharing touches with Zach Charbonnet. The offense is just like he
He's so mid. He's
he's very
unbelievably mid.
mid. He is young at least, and he had second round draft capital, so he'll be the starter his entire rookie deal, and he'll probably get a second contract somewhere else. But he's just an average player, kind of like Pacheco.
Yeah,
Doesn't
super
do
capped
anything
upside
special.
there
Yeah,
as well. Going to play that I think actually has some nice upside here is Joe Mixon. Obviously, Joe Mixon's pretty old when it comes to running backs, but he's on the Texans now. Texans are going to be a fantastic offense with C.J. Stroud, Nico Collins, Diggs, all those guys. I think Mixon can really benefit from that. He's someone that's been inefficient his entire career. I don't think he has to be efficient to succeed in Houston. He just has to get to the 1 or 2 yard line and just push the ball in the end zone. I think Mixon has upside for 12 plus touchdowns just because of how good that offense could be. And because of that, I think Mixon could have good, 1 to 2 year worth of value, which is why we have him here.
yeah. And people like to use bell cow committees a lot in the NFL, but in Houston's case, like it's Damian Pierce is the other. Like there is no
Yeah,
other
they
running
suck.
backs. It's Joe Mixon and nobody else. So very excited for Joe Mixon. The last guy that rounds out this list, Najee Harris. We're pretty excited for him this season. He gets a lot of hate just because he's been inefficient his first few years in the NFL. But they bring in Arthur Smith, who's going to run the football so much. They decline Najee Harris's fifth year option. So I think maybe just get 1 year of just run Najee into the ground. He's playing behind the best offensive line of his career. So I think just combining all those factors, you're going to get a pretty good year out of Najee fantasy wise. And again, 1 to 2 year windows. I'd rather take a swing on those type of veterans, like older guys that you got like 1 to 2 years of really good production than Isaiah Pacheco or Kenneth Walker, who are younger but won't produce as
Yeah,
much.
take him over like a Zach Charbonnet too, like someone like he's young, has good draft capital. I don't care, he sucks.
Yeah, we want the old guys that nobody else wants, and we
Yeah,
want the 15 to 16 points. We want that. We don't want the Pachecos, the Kenneth Walkers.
no, they suck. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.